Hi, you're watching India Post Live. I'm Shivraj, and today we're discussing how Microsoft has pulled the plug on Windows XP and what the fallout might be. You can join the conversation by logging on to our website, indiapostlive.com. You can also tweet with us and join in the conversation, hashtag IndiaPostLive. Now, Microsoft has decided to pull the plug on Windows XP, its 12-year-old operating system. On its page, in a very stark reminder to users, Windows XP has said that from now on, anyone using Windows XP will not have access to security updates or technical support for their operating system. So what does this mean? Let's take a look.
Windows XP first hit the market in 2001 and slowly became a household name. XP is also the great-grandfather of Microsoft's newest baby, Windows 8. Now that the company has decided it will no longer provide security updates and technical support on XP, what happens to the consumer? Imagine running a business in China as 70% of all computers in the country run on XP. India too will suffer as majority of people use the software because of its low system requirements. It is estimated that globally, nearly 30% of PCs in businesses of all sizes are on Windows XP. But what happens next? Experts are of the opinion that XP will be full of holes like a Swiss cheese. Holes that criminal hackers and other attackers will use for negative purpose. So if you're still using Windows XP, it is important that you migrate to a current supported operating system.
Well, that's the big concern. Most of financial institutions use the back end of Windows XP for all their transactions. Joining us in studio is Rajesh Gupta, who's the co-founder of WI Systems, and Mr. Surendran Nambiat, who's also an IT expert. Rajesh, from an industry perspective, do you really think Microsoft thought through the entire strategy of discontinuing Windows XP? Because it seems like they just pulled the plug very suddenly.
Problem is that day to day and new technology and new advanced technology come in market. So Microsoft think about the update the technology and cover the market with new technology. So he thought close the supports and the security changes as per the market view, but is a problem is that new means already belonging like lots of government organization and the banking sector and the financial sector already use the Windows XP. So it is effective, sometime effective on the business and the market, but after some time if no security available and continue create the problem of the using the Windows XP, then people think about the upgrade the version of the Windows 7 and Windows 8. So sometime is the create the problem, sure, but after day by day if continuous people use the Windows XP like for the business purpose, then all problem is create as per the business perspective. So he is upgrade the to Windows XP to Windows 7 and 8 something like.
So Surendran, from a pure play IT perspective, the fact that security update patches will not happen. There'll be vulnerabilities, there'll be malware, and of course we've been seeing reports of hackers actually now trying any which way to get into large organization systems. About 70 to 90% of government institutions, banks, ATMs, point of transaction, backend is all supported by Windows XP. So what is the implication of them now pulling the plug and refusing to step in with any more updates?
I would like to answer your question in two parts. The first part is Microsoft is forced to make this change.
Sure.
This is an operating system which is 12 years old, and I don't think any operating system ever can live for 12 years in today's quick changing IT world. It is something stupendous if you ask me. Secondly, let us look at the origins of XP, how it happened. Until XP, all programs were backwardly compatible. So the earlier DOS programs, the text based, if you have seen them, they were all compatible. They could run on XP. But today's operating systems, do not need that kind of backward compatibility.
Yes.
If you were to use Adobe Photoshop or any of those later programs, they do not need a text-based text-based environment. Secondly, XP could only address 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Sure.
Tell me which application runs on 4 GB of
Now
RAM
they're
today?
offering RAM which is going way over
128,
to 60,
yes.
128.
With the later editions, with the 32-bit and 64-bit editions coming
Sure.
in, you can address as much as 128 gigabytes of RAM. So it is essential for Microsoft to update its operating system. You cannot continue selling what is old, what is insecure, and what is not required anymore, really, for the higher end purposes at least. The second reason, and perhaps I think this is equally important, is that Microsoft has a vision today. For a long time, they were at, of course, number one for a very long period of time, and then they got overtaken by the Googles and the Apples. Now they want to assert themselves, they want to come back to where they belong, which they believe is at the top. Fair enough. Now, how do they get to the top? They are a company which has lost a lot of their credentials already because of hacking and all these things happening. How do they get to the top? They believe that if they do it by means of having one unified operating system across form factors, starting with your smartphones, phablets, tablets,
And
laptops.
that's interesting you're bringing that up, because actually now the operating systems that exist on these,
Yes.
unlike the old PCs, have moved to the new operating systems
Absolutely,
that
absolutely.
Microsoft offers, especially on the Android phones,
Yes.
right?
Yes, yes.
But still, the criticism is that Windows 8, for some reason, just hasn't taken hold of the market.
That's right,
And I think that's the big question everyone's asking is, you're offering us the carrot of Windows 8, but you're giving us the stick of taking away Windows XP that everyone's become very used to.
I think there's the other side to it, the Microsoft side to it. The Microsoft side to it is that they have a vision where there's a unified environment.
Sure.
Whatever you run on your smartphone can also run on a laptop.
Absolutely.
Don't tell me no operating system permits that today. Whether it's the Apple iOS, they have a separate operating system for the laptops and desktops, but they have a separate operating system for the iPhones and iPads. Microsoft wants to be there. And that is why you see touch screens on laptops, something which was unthinkable of even a couple of years ago.
Right.
Today you've got touch screen enabled laptops which run Windows 8.1. Yes, the transition is going to be difficult, but we need to
Causes
learn.
a lot of gripe.
It causes a lot of gripe, but people are picking up. I have shifted to 8.1 a couple of months ago, and I'm quite happy with it, quite satisfied.
So
with
we
it.
do actually have a guest who's joined us via Google Hangout from Oman. Yusuf Alvi, give us your perspective on the announcement that Windows is pulling the plug on Windows XP.
See, first of all, I would say hi to all the guests and you. I have been using Windows XP for a long time, and now since the updates and the security is not available, so I don't know, I'll have to upgrade it without any reason. If I don't, there is a potential security threat to whatever I do. So I just want to ask that what should I do if I don't upgrade it to Windows 8 or any other platforms, then what should a common man do?
That's a very valid question. So from an industry perspective, from a technology perspective, if you could just help Yusuf understand from a layperson user's perspective, there is a fear.
Yeah.
If I don't update, what happens? I'm vulnerable.
May I take this question with your permission? Yusuf, I think you have two options really. One is to upgrade your Windows to Windows 8.1 or 7 preferably if you do not like the interface of 8. The other option is to go the open source way. Go for Ubuntu or go for Linux or some such flavor. The problem with Linux and Ubuntu and all those things is that suppose you buy a new cell phone, you'll have to wait for a long period of time before the driver is available for that kind of an operating system. With Apple, that problem is less, but then the total cost of ownership is obviously a lot higher than it is for the Windows platform. So the choice is really yours.
So Yusuf, does that sort of answer your question?
See, I just want to say one thing, basically it's for the Microsoft people. For example, right now if I change and get a Mac,
Right.
then it's a potential loss for Microsoft, I would say.
Yes.
And if they want to be on the top, then I think that if I move on, they're losing on business.
But Yusuf, what has been happening so far is that the total cost of ownership for a Mac is a lot higher. So there will be a lot of people who want to get into Mac. When they see the cost, they pull back. It is still much easier, much cheaper to upgrade to Windows 7. It costs about 7,000 rupees or so, if my information is right. That's all it takes to upgrade the operating system. So that is still the better way. Yes, of course, you'll also have to upgrade your hardware. In case you have a 4 GB machine, then it has to go up to 8 GB or 16 GB, whatever it is. That cost is, of course, there. It is still a lot cheaper upgrading to Windows, to the next version of Windows.
Rajesh, there's a valid question that Yusuf asked. I mean, there is a fear now that if Microsoft had done this, they could lose out business to open source offerings like Linux, but also to Apple as well. So while it might be costlier, people might get a little insecure about the Microsoft proposition.
Presently, all open source friendly available on the web, and it is very fast and very user friendly. If you compare with the XP Windows, then Linux is the very Linux like Ubuntu, Fedora, and CentOS, the Linux operating system is very friendly and very fast. If you open your Windows XP and Windows 7 8, it take 3 minutes, but
Easily, yes.
if you open the Linux, it take only 56 to 65 second. It is the very fast, but not a friendly in a market right now.
Okay. So
In
Yusuf,
India market.
would you? I mean, just throwing a question back at you. Would you look at alternatives like Linux, or do you think that it's just too complicated?
I think it's too complicated. I haven't used Linux ever before.
Okay.
So either I have used a Mac. So either I would go for a Mac or upgrade myself to Windows 7, I would say, because Windows 8 for me personally, it's not as user friendly as the XP or Windows 7. So most probably I would either go for a Mac, and validly said that it is way more expensive than upgrading it to a Windows 7. So maybe I would go for a Windows 7.
All right, Yusuf, thank you very much for joining us on Google Hangout from Oman. It was very interesting talking to you, and do keep joining in all our conversations.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Surendra, the big fear from a large enterprise point of view is that a lot of banks and financial institutions still have XP. From a solutions perspective, what could they do without disrupting? Because at the end of the day, unlike individual users, they need to keep operations running.
Yes.
What would be an ideal situation now that Microsoft has made this ultimatum clear?
I don't know if you are aware, but the British government has actually paid Microsoft a sum of 5.5 million pounds for extending XP's support for another year.
Okay.
So you could buy Microsoft Office support on XP. That's one option. Of course, we as individuals cannot do it. Neither can banks do it. It's only entire governments that can do it.
Sure.
If you look at the governments or smaller sized organizations who are on XP, the only logical option for them is to change to some other edition of Windows, preferably Windows 7. That is the only option, because once XP support stops, all these hackers, crackers, malware developers, they will get after it like candy or something, and they will find holes in it. See, let me tell you, no operating system is hole-free, including the Apple Macintosh operating system, including Ubuntu and Linux. They all have loopholes which can be compromised by an intelligent person. After all, this software written by a human being, some other human being can crack it. It's nothing so difficult. Why the Windows platform has seen so many viruses and attacks, security attacks, is because it is 95% of the world market share.
Absolutely.
So if you were a hacker and you wanted to get into as many accounts as possible, it's clear you would go for the Windows platform, which is 95% usage, rather than Apple, which is 4% usage, or Ubuntu, which has 2% usage. So that's the reason why.
So Rajesh, the other concern was that now that it seems that Windows XP is a little vulnerable, malware and hackers will step in, and once they step in, they'll navigate the way Windows works and might also attack the other versions of operating systems.
Absolutely.
Is that a valid concern?
No, actually, it is means it is reflect on the business and the another programs. So I think not.
And actually, a lot of the security companies are saying they will still continue to provide security patches.
Yes,
the
yes.
the McAfees, the Semantics, the Kasperskys of the world. But will they able to continue, doing that? Because Windows XP is not going to be in the market.
Problem is that all antivirus like Northern and McAfee and Quick Heal. Is the ask I provide the 100% security, but sometimes users not fulfill the 100% of the terms of the all antivirus, like use the pen drives and the connect the system via one system to another system. So sometime is security is not fulfill the requirement, and they the and hack the system and
See, the
program.
greatest danger is zero-day exploits, where the antivirus company also does not know what's happening. A virus which has just been developed. So antivirus companies take a couple of days, sometimes weeks even, to find an antidote for it. But with lesser and lesser people using XP, where is the incentive for these companies to patch zero-day exploits? They would simply stop after a point of time. That could be 3 months down the line, 6 months, we don't know.
In fact, interestingly, we are getting a lot of tweets around the show because, of course, it's a very topical, trending one. We've got Sebo asking, Microsoft had to pull the plug. How many enterprise-grade tools are compatible with Win XP?
How many? I'm sorry, I didn't
How
get that.
many enterprise-grade tools are compatible with Win XP?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because so many enterprises, so many enterprise tools. But I think the later organizations, people who have started, absorbing IT a little later, they would have moved into Windows 7 or something like that. The earlier organizations, the conservative organizations, they could be and they would be sticking to XP. Now they need to move out fast. There's no
But
gainsaying
in
that.
an Indian market where PCs are still, for the low end,
Yes.
affordable segment, is still currency. So there's an interesting tweet. It's a little unfair, but anyways, Sarab Chadda is asking, Windows just appointed new Indian origin CEO, and its gift to Indian people, XPires. I think that's a valid concern amongst a market like this where affordability is an issue. I mean,
That's
Windows
true,
7 and
that's
8 is a little more expensive to go in
But
for.
let me ask my friend Sarab here,
Okay.
whether he would consider buying a Mac which is so much more expensive.
Absolutely.
So the choice is something which is a lot more expensive.
Okay, and another question is, businesses might frown at the phenomenon, but how many programs would really run on that old piece, right? You said that in the beginning of the program. You're saying they have to upgrade because they have to support newer RAM, newer
RAM
capability,
requirements,
newer
yes.
requirements,
Yes.
newer programs, newer user demands, right?
That's correct, yes.
So would you say that on the one hand, Microsoft has the right idea, but perhaps they went about it a little too harshly or abruptly?
I would not even say that.
Okay.
Because, they have been saying this for the last 18 months. It is not, the last few days or few weeks. They have been saying this, they have been putting it up on their website for the last 18 months. So, it is we people who have been slow to respond. They have done, I think, they have given adequate notice to all customers. That's my personal belief. Of course,
Yes,
you are
yes.
free to,
Do you feel from a business industry point of view that this was a good approach, that they actually gave customers time to get used to the idea that Windows XP is not going to be around anymore? Do you think that it was fair the way they approached it?
Sometime you can say this is the effective on the business, but for the longer time, if you think about the future, then it's not bad for the business.
yes, it has to, tide over this crisis. In fact, Microsoft has even offered $100 for any working laptop or any device, which is a working device, of course, which is running XP. You can take $100 credit and get your next version of Windows.
Okay, so clearly the conversation has begun on Twitter, but do continue sending in your comments so we can get our experts in studio to respond to them and continue the conversation. Tweet with us at #IndiaPostLive. Also log on to our website, indiapostlive.com, and to continue keeping those comments going. Now, Rajesh, from a pure play industry perspective, now that Windows has made this a fait accompli, what are the next steps that large users should take to transition? Because buying IT decisions in large organizations differ from buying decisions of individuals.
I suggest for the use of the Windows.
So if a CTO was watching the show, what would your recommendation to a CTO be?
I recommend for the using the Windows 7 and Windows 8. And mostly I meet to the mostly IT sector. So I see mostly people upgrade the Windows XP to Windows 7 and Windows 8 mostly.
Okay.
The Windows 7 is the good for the business
I
perspective.
fully agree with him here, because if you're invested in stuff which works under Windows, you have no option but to continue with Windows, the next version. You cannot suddenly uproot all your software and bring in a completely different environment or platform. That's not possible really.
And like you said, Microsoft isn't exactly not incentivizing it. You said
Yes,
the UK
yes,
government,
yes.
for instance,
Yes.
has actually signed up. But would you say that Microsoft is perhaps also trying to be a bit too commercial with the carrot and stick effort that it's
I
making?
would think no. I would think no, but then of course personal opinions do vary. I would think no, because Microsoft has an agenda. They have a vision, and their vision is to be number one again. And this is the route they charted for themselves.
Okay, another tweet, again from Sarab, obviously watching the show very excitedly. You could pull out the network cable or switch off Wi-Fi, but the sensible option is to finally move on from Windows XP. I think that's encouraging,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Because a lot of people are saying that the interoperability from your handheld phone to your PC, the way they talk to each other,
Yes,
has
yes.
become much simpler with the Windows 8
Yes,
option.
yes. Yes, I'm on Windows 8, and I'm quite happy with it. I shifted from Android after a couple of years, 2-3 years on Android. I'm a happier person today, let me tell you honestly.
But from a user perspective, a lot of criticism on Windows 8 is that they're trying too much to be like an Apple interface. And what's happening is it's hanging, and there are a lot of issues if you're not using a mouse, and if you're using just the laptop, that it just gets very confusing. Is there something that Microsoft can do to create a lot more buzz around its new operating system? Because it seems that they haven't managed that far.
First time, if user use 8 Windows 8, then he feel very uncomfortable with the Windows 8. But after using the 10 or 20 times, then it is very compatible and very fast, and the look and feel is the very good. So I think it's not bad for the user.
See, I think the only trouble point here is that it is touch enabled, and it's a lot like the phablet operating system. That's the only problem. Otherwise, it is much faster to start up. Please confirm that with me. It is much faster to start up than earlier versions of Windows.
Yeah, but you were saying that
Yes.
even though it takes 2-3 minutes, it's much faster than the
Yes, yes, it's much faster to start up, and it plays very well. And even the hardware requirements are not so much more. If you can run 7, it can run 8 also.
So, a lot of analysts, and this is something I'm just picking up, say that they realize that companies have years of customization and links between programs built into XP.
Yes, yes.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is the mantra now. They're worried. Why we're coming back to this is that in the Indian scenario, a lot of the old institutions like banks and government
hang on to XP.
will still hang on, right?
Yes.
For them to move to the next stage will mean retendering, getting into an
Yes,
entire
yes,
process.
yes.
How do you think it will now play out?
I'm sure a lot of people will make money. The system integrators will make some money over here, I'm sure. But this is a required step. Keeping the interests of consumers and the organization's own interests in mind, this is the only logical alternative.
Okay, and Rajesh, from talking to CTOs and getting a sense of what everyone's saying, what has the reaction been? Because it's of course only 3 days old, the announcement and the fact that it's expired.
Actually stopped, yes.
But what has the reaction been on ground?
Last 8 April, Windows XP is expire. But I review last days on the web. But is it the postponed for the 2016? Microsoft the postponed this security update further, but is not just thinking about the postpone the 2 year more for the security update and the patches.
It's like buying insurance.
Right.
You buy insurance, but you don't expect to use it. It's like that.
Okay, we
You
have a
keep
Google
insurance.
Hangout. We do have a Google Hangout caller, Gyan Tiwari from Lucknow, joining us in the conversation. Gyan, go ahead with your question. Gyan, if you can hear us, we're welcoming you to joining on the conversation. What is your question on the fact that Microsoft is pulling the plug on XP, or has actually 3 days ago? All right, Gyan doesn't seem to really,
Be able to
seem
hear
to
us.
hear us. But again, going back to a question that's just popped up on Twitter, Bobinson KB saying, again, what about our banks?
What?
What about our banks?
Banks.
Well, yes. If you remember, there was also this 2000 Y2K issue which came
Absolutely.
up, which passed off peacefully. But this is not going to be peaceful because
not
no,
going to be
yeah, this
peaceful.
is not going to be peaceful. This is going to be a lot more disruptive than the Y2K problem was. I mean, that was never a problem. It just seemed to smoothly.
Actually, it was the
transition.
Indian IT industry that
Yes,
saved the day.
yes, yes,
But
yes,
the
yes,
point
yes,
is,
yes.
Indian users, whether they're banks or individuals, it will cause a lot of heartburn, right?
Yes, it will. It will. It will. You never know when the banks that you go to, when there's a virus attack and all your ATM machines are down, you cannot transfer money, and even worse probably. So they need to act fast. Banks defense. I don't know how much of a defense
Absolutely.
is on XP, and it's defense
And
is
data,
a critical
which
issue.
is very critical.
Yes, yes, it's very critical. If somebody can access all the data, I'll not name countries, but no, it's a gold mine of information.
Absolutely. You don't need to name the countries in our neighborhood who are just waiting for that vulnerability. But now we're moving also to chips on our credit cards, on
Yes.
on our debit cards.
Yes,
It's all linked, right?
Yeah.
So how secure will it be if banks still work on the old system?
Problem is that means very friendly. I go to the ATMs and another swiper machine and use the debit card and credit card. So it is very easy. But I think some upgrade already coming in market. If a Windows XP is required, then some upgrade already. Service provider company like who is the handle the like Bipro and another thing is the handle the ATMs. So I think already some upgrade version is available for
And what
the
about
ATMs.
airlines, Surendran? That's another
Airline, yes,
big
yes,
fear
again,
because the
again,
entire
yes, yes.
travel sort of
Network,
back-end
yes.
infrastructure is built on something like an XP.
In fact, you mentioned the word back end, which just set me off thinking. Most of these ATM cards, the credit cards that you use to
Sure.
pay petrol and stuff like that, that uses Java. Those point of terminals uses Java.
Java.
And Java, of course, is it's not OS dependent. It
Right.
can run on any OS.
Yes.
Okay,
it
so
is
that's
the,
interesting.
It is the back end which needs to change. The front end is fine. We don't
Okay.
need to tamper with that at all. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you have any different opinion.
No.
So that's
The back
interesting.
end is
So
what
the
helps.
front end, if it's agnostic of the back end,
Yeah.
what then can institutions like banks do to make sure that they match and assure customers that what Microsoft has done is really not such a big deal?
It's not really.
No?
It's not really. If you move fast and if you move in the right direction.
Means Microsoft means Microsoft thinking about the upgrade the business as per the market perspective.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's what Surendran said right in the beginning. You have to look at it from moving with the times, and Microsoft is doing just that.
yeah.
But like again, I go back to when you talk to system integrators. Of course, they're going to make a lot out of this. What has their reaction been from the industry? What has the reaction been to this announcement?
I think a small effect on the market, but they choose any another option like sir already say कि last 16 month ago Microsoft already warned to all customers. So I think all customer already choose any another option like Windows 7 and Windows 8. And
Interesting,
Linux
because
and-
just taking off from there, we have a tweet that from Ankit Sinha says Windows 7 is more faster than Windows XP and one of the best OSs
Yes.
that Microsoft's produced.
Yes.
Now banks are smart; they'll find a way soon.
Absolutely.
I think that
I think that's very
assuages a lot of
positive.
fears.
It's a very
Yeah?
positive tweet.
Who knows? There's another cheeky one from Chandrasekhar Ray who says, "Who knows? Maybe Zuckerberg will buy Microsoft someday." And then we've got more. So this is great because Sarab's really watching the show. What to do if you love Windows XP and hate Windows 8?
I think a lot of people are going to come in that bracket.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I actually agree because I purchased my new laptop with Windows 8 and I wasn't happy with the interface. And ironically, I know someone from Microsoft said, but you should get a mouse or you should have gotten the touch screen.
screen,
But not everyone wants that, right?
That's true, that's true. You are being forced onto something which you don't want to use. But then the good thing is that with 8.1, as compared to 8, that is Windows 8, that is, it has become a little more touch, it has become a little more mouse and keyboard friendly. With 8.2 or whatever they're going to call the next version, it's going to be a lot more keyboard and mouse friendly. So they are progressing along those lines. Their initial thought that it should be only touch enabled, that has changed. Microsoft has climbed down that high pedestal and come down to the common man there. So I'm sure somewhere down the line we will meet and it will be a pleasant experience.
Thank you, Surendran. Rajesh, your last comments.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing that Microsoft has done by phasing out Windows XP?
I guess it is the good things. Microsoft thinking about the new generation of the market and the peoples. So as per my understanding, is a good for the new generation people.
Thank you, Rajesh, for joining us in studio. Of course, you can continue joining in on all our conversations by logging onto our website, indiapostlive.com. Of course, Microsoft is moving with the times. That's the consensus in this conversation. They just have to transition to the new operating system. Continue watching, and thank you for joining in the conversation.
Thank you.